not so much. But as the mercury has risen, and it seems as if all of a sudden the hot weather and the muggy weather came upon us rather quickly, there have been a number of incidents right across North America, as a matter of fact, over the last few weeks, about students being sent home because of dress code violations. And invariably it's because they don't like the kind of outfits that they're wearing, and invariably it's girls as opposed to boys. A Montreal student was suspended earlier this week for violating the school dress code at Beaconsfield High School. Lindsay Stalker is this young lady's name, and she was sent home because the school said that shorts that she had on were far too short. She has responded, as opposed to simply going home and adhering to the dress code. She has put posters up around the school that say, "Don't humiliate her because she is wearing shorts. Instead of shaming girls for their bodies, teach boys that girls are not sexual objects." That's her perspective on this. So are girls unfairly being targeted? And it's because of as she indicates here, because too many people, including school administrators sometimes, think that this is all about sexual activity as opposed to dressing comfortably, which is what the girls are saying they're doing. What's going on here? Gary Dernfeld is, of course, your social worker for many, many years here in this area and across southern Ontario. His website, yoursocialworker.com, always a great read to get insights into things like this, and it's always a pleasure to welcome Gary to the Bill Kelly Show on CHML. Gary, thank you for the time today.
Good to be with you, Bill. It's a hot day here in Hamilton, so who knows what's being worn out.
Well, I hope you're appropriately dressed, Mr. Dernfeld.
My belt is tightly wrapped around my waist.
I hope it's holding something up. Anyway, let's get on. Enough about you. Let's talk about these other situations. The girls, I'm surprised by the reaction to this young lady in Montreal and some others that have I guess, taken the cause up from this and simply saying, this is not about dress codes. This is about the sexualization of girls. We're just trying to dress comfortably like guys do, and we're being targeted.
Well, we're trying to dichotomize this issue. Is it one or the other? And in fact, it can be both at the same time. So we do have some dress codes in our schools, both private and public. And then there are those that want to flaunt them, those dress codes. And then there are those who are saying, this is my right. And, at the end of the day, we're also dealing with teenagers, and teenagers are apt to want to flaunt rules. It's part of being a teenager. Bill, if we had this discussion, 30, 40 years ago, it would be about the length of the boy's hair because of the influence of the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that.
Yeah. So
we had, I don't know what it was like when you were going to school, Gary. I think at one point we were not allowed to wear, the only shirt you could wear had to be a shirt with a collar. No T-shirts, no turtlenecks.
Right. So there are social norms, social values that are always at play for every generation. And, the issue in part here is, are we targeting girls specifically? What about boys whose pants fall down to their, past their buttocks and their butt crack is showing? So if there are dress codes, certainly, I stand on the side of seeing it being applied equally regardless of gender. At the end of the day, we do want our kids to grow up to respect and value themselves as well as others, and to understand that we all do live in a social context. I can't show up to work dressed as some kids might show up to school. And we do want to prepare them for adulthood and for those kinds of responsibilities.
But what about the other side of this? And I don't want to be as flippant as to say, well, let teenagers be teenagers. But they're saying, look, this is the fashion of the day. It's 2014. This is what people of our age wear. Why can't we wear it to school?
Right. So, just to represent the different arguments, not to say that I'm aligned with one or the other, there are those who say, on the one hand, you don't want to be seen as a sexual object, and we can understand and appreciate that, and wearing revealing clothes should not make you a target for the inappropriate comments and or activities and or behavior of the boys. But people are going to argue that nonetheless, you're talking about teenage boys for whom sex rolls through their mind every 10, 20 seconds anyways. So we do want to still exercise caution. So these are all the arguments that are out there and at play at the same time. And quite frankly, Bill, I'm comfortable with all the arguments coexisting. I'm comfortable with the larger discussion on these issues, and for the discussion, how do we want to raise our teenagers? How do we want to facilitate their independence, their autonomy? How do we want them to understand societal boundaries at the same time? This is a great discussion.
Yeah, because there are so many variations on the theme. I mean, it's a muggy day today. If I get out of here today and I see a guy going down Main Street on a bicycle and it's a hot muggy day and he doesn't have a shirt on, no big deal.
Right.
And if he's got cutoffs on, no big deal. But if a woman is sparingly clad, shall we say, all of a sudden, what this young lady is suggesting is that a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, you know what she's trying to do.
Right. I was surveying some of the comments on the different news feeds earlier before we started chatting, and most of the comments line up with, this is not a woman's right to show her legs or whatever. This really is an issue of decency and understanding that putting it out there in a sense flaunts that, and it's not going to be either a good reflection or healthy for the person doing so. That's where the news feeds line up. One of them, suggested, hey, I'm a 35-year-old male, a 35-year-old female teacher, and I don't even know where to put my eyes with respect to some of the girls sitting in class in front of me. So while on the one hand we say, have the freedom, but at the end of the day, I think people still do need to take some responsibility for how they're going to present themselves in public and realize, whether we like it or not, there is a reaction.
Yeah, I get that, and I'm not trying to take a side here either, but I can see where the young ladies are coming from in this situation, because they're saying that when they get dressed for the weather, in this case short shorts, so that seems to be a common theme with a lot of these, that they're simply dressing in what they think is comfortable attire in a situation like that. When a guy does it, they don't look at it as sexualization. When a woman does it, it's sexualization. They feel that's an unfair playing field.
And you know what? I'm not going to argue with that point of view, because
I'm sure you saw there was one opinion here from a doctor from Memorial University that says that dress codes are disproportionately disadvantageous to females just by their nature.
Yeah, and that's not too inarguable. When the guy has his pants down to his butt crack, gee whiz, I don't know if anyone finds that sexually appealing. But we, it would be nice to see these dress codes applied evenly, and I don't know if they are or aren't, quite frankly. But certain things are going to hit the media and cause more of a stir. This is one of those, and I don't know.
Well, who makes these determinations? I mean, invariably schools, is it done arbitrarily? I mean, some schools, I guess, it's done through parent council, and they try to decide that. But again, I can understand where a lot of the students are going to get frustrated by this, Gary, because they're going to say, look, I don't want 45 or 50-year-olds telling a 17-year-old what they can and can't wear, because they have no fashion sense at all.
Well,
would you? I mean, it's like going to. It's like saying, you know what, we're going to go in. I'm going to tell you what to buy. All right, I'm going to tell you what you're going to wear to school. And I understand in some schools there's uniform, but you don't go into a store like that and simply say, okay, I'm going to tell my 17-year-old what she can and can't wear, because you know where that's going to go.
Right. So what was interesting about this case, because you say, who gets to apply the rules and are they applied fairly and whatnot. So at the end of the day, when school boards or particular schools do come up with their policies on attire, it is nice if they have some objective measures. And as I read the news reports on this girl in the school she attended, the objective measure was that the pair of shorts had to come down to the tip of your fingers when your arms are relaxed by your side. So that does provide some objective measures for the students, for the schools to hold students accountable to. And at the end of the day, that is what we want. We do want an objective measure, so it's not just you can't wear this because I said so. It offends me, or I believe it causes you to look one way or the other. So there does have to be objective measures. as a society, you and I, Bill, we do have to show up a certain way to work. There's no two ways about it. We're not going to get the job promotion. We're not going to be as respected if we show up different than that. So again, it's not unreasonable to have some minimal standards, but again, the flip side is we're dealing with teenagers. By definition, they are there to flaunt some of those standards, to push limits. And so I kind of applaud this girl at the same time because that's what she's doing. She's just being, from my perspective, a reasonable teenager fighting the fight with, and putting forth the issue as she sees fit. So again, I don't have any issue with either side of the argument. I think these are things that we do have to talk about. And as you see, oh my goodness, what a flurry of controversy over things that at the end of the day aren't life-threatening.
Not life-threatening, but something. There is another issue that I think loosely wound around this, Gary, and it's something you and I have talked about in the past, and that's perception. And in as much as I know some parents might be dismissive of these posters that this young girl put up in the high school, what she's essentially saying is, no matter how I dress, don't look at me as a sexual object. And you know what? That's a discussion, because if there are people that are going to do that, that can lead to much bigger problems.
Sure. And that's a reasonable argument.
And that's where you get into that, well, she was asking for it.
Yeah. The other thing that we tell people is don't judge a book by its cover, but you and I both know we only pick up the book whose cover we like. So superficiality, the cover speaks to us, and we do make judgments on the basis of the cover. And I think that is another side of the message that other people are trying to convey in this argument. And without a value judgment, we're not saying whether it's good or bad, and maybe we are saying it's bad, but the fact is that still remains, and so we should be aware of that too. So it's not either or. It's, for me, this is a that and.
Exactly, because what I see missing here, and maybe it's just not being reported, I don't know, but if the school's going to say, well, we do have standards, and you just indicated, about the fingertip, etc., the fingertip rule, I guess, I'm sure that's how it's called. But I don't hear a discussion. I think this is an opportunity for the school and all schools that are faced with this for a teaching moment to say, look, we get that, but here's our standard, and this is what we want you to adhere to. But at the same time, let's talk a little bit about perception and about leering and about these sorts of things, and about, because that in the absence of that, you're simply saying it's almost a reverse onus that we've heard way too many times during sexual assault trials, Garrett, where people are going to say, well, look at how she was dressed. Come on.
Right, and we certainly don't want that to form part of the argument here, that how a woman dresses relates to whether or not a man should have assaulted or not. I mean, there's nothing a woman can do that could legitimize being assaulted. That's a bottom line statement. But we still need to have a larger, more fulsome discussion about all these things, and say, notwithstanding what should or shouldn't be, let's take a look at the world we live in currently. How are we going to either manage to live within it? How are we going to change it? Because it's okay to change the world. And how are we going to go about doing that? And so that is what is happening here. That this young female student turned this for everyone into a teachable moment by putting it into a gender politic and saying, there are these standards, and please look beyond how we're dressed, and this doesn't give you permission to attack or sexually assault me or anyone else. And those are messages worth getting out there, too.
I got to ask you, well, I've got you, because there is an interesting sidebar story to this whole thing, and I'm sure you saw this one too, Gary, but the school in, I think it was Utah, that actually they had their yearbook pictures taken, and I guess there were some students that were clad in, shall we say, attire that was maybe not totally acceptable to some of the school administration. So they photoshopped it.
No. I didn't hear about that.
What they did is they digitally altered some of the yearbook photos for some of the students here. That they thought if they were showing too much skin, they raised, the collars on some of these. They put long sleeves on some of the girls that they thought, they said that's a little bit too racy. There's a little too much skin there. And they actually fixed these things up, so they're altered. So the picture that you brought home to Mom and Dad apparently is not the same one that's going to go into the yearbook.
What a crazy changing world we live in, hey?
It just, it's taking it to, I guess, to the nth degree, but it tells you, I guess, obviously some people are pretty adamant about this.
Well, yeah, and so this is a hot button concern and issue. It's pushing the boundaries, but that, again, like you said, these are teachable moments, and we need those discussions in our communities. We need to see if we can narrow the gap in terms of our consensus making. We'll never all be on the same page, but can we at least narrow the gap and find a place to live?
Oftentimes, though, that doesn't happen. Oftentimes, they simply say, these are the rules, there'll be no discussion. I'm further to that, and this is a parent talking now. I think oftentimes the rules are actually the fodder for the discussion that needs to be had.
Yeah, all of this reminds me of the movie Flashdance. No, not Flashdance, Footloose.
Okay, yeah.
Footloose. Kevin Bacon, he moves from a big city to a small town that is more parochial, if I may, and conservative. And can we have a school dance? And how it pushes the boundaries there. I would certainly encourage our youth to watch that movie today with their parents, apply it to today's situation, and have that discussion.
Interesting. And go rent the movie. It's worthwhile. Interesting discussion. And by the way, if you want to get some further information about this and some great perspectives, the website is called yoursocialworker.com, and there's some great stuff up there. Gary, thanks as always. Great talking to you today.
Okay. Button up your collar, buddy.
I will do just that. Thanks so much, Gary Durenfeld. Back after the break, the Bill Kelly Show continues on CHML and Cable 14.